This time the state will tender into evidence case exhibit 341 through 357.
Third reading, 341 through 357. State calls next witness.
State calls Kelly Jimison.
Put up here, please, ma'am.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. If you could please state and spell your name for the record.
It's Kelly, K-E-L-L-E-Y, Jimison, J-I-M-I-S-O-N.
Now, in 2015, did you go by the name Kelly Gaskin?
I did.
And how do you spell Gaskin?
G-A-S-K-I-N.
And how are you currently employed?
As a pediatric nurse practitioner with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in the department of the Stephanie V. Blank Center for Safe and Healthy Children.
And how long have you worked there?
12 and a half years.
What is the Stephanie V. Blank Center?
It is a child advocacy center.
And what are your duties at the Stephanie V. Blank Center?
I diagnose, treat, and evaluate children when there is a concern for physical or sexual abuse.
And were your duties the same as they are now on November 20th, 2015?
They were.
Prior to working at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where did you work?
I worked at Hugh Spalding Hospital, which was not affiliated with Children's at that time and was part of Grady Health System.
How long did you work there?
10 years.
What were your job duties there?
I was also a pediatric nurse practitioner working in an emergency room setting.
And at, I believe you said Hugh Spalding?
Correct.
Did you also perform physical and sexual exams on children?
Yes.
Now, at the Stephanie V. Blank Center, do you conduct the sexual abuse and physical abuse exams on children?
Yes.
Okay. And approximately how many total exams have you done when there's been concerns of child physical abuse?
In the thousands.
And does that include your time at Hugh Spalding?
No.
So that's just at the Stephanie V. Blank Center.
Correct.
Now, how do patients generally come to the Stephanie V. Blank Center?
One of two ways. Either they are seen acutely when there is something that has very recently happened within potentially 72 hours in the emergency room setting, and we're called in as consultants, or they are scheduled in our outpatient clinic that is located on the campus of Scottish Rite.
I want to call your attention to November 20 of 2015. Did you perform a physical examination on Millie Place?
I did.
And how did she come into your center?
She came in with a defects caseworker after concern was raised following the death of her 2-year-old sibling, and they were requesting examination and evaluation for concern of physical injuries.
Did Millie have a scheduled appointment, or did she come in through the ER?
She had a scheduled appointment.
And at this time, I tender State's Exhibit 372 into evidence.
Admitted 372.
Those are Millie's medical records for November 20, 2015. Now, when we talk about a patient's history in the context we are now, what does that mean?
A patient's history of what we consider the present illness are the specific complaints, signs, symptoms, or concerns that are being brought forth or why the patient is seeking medical attention.
And in this case, who provided you with that history?
The caseworker from Henry County Defects that was present.
And generally, what was the history provided to you?
I'm going to refer to my note if that's okay.
That would be fine.
It was not a very specific history. There was not a lot of information known to this caseworker, who I believe had just been put onto this case. Again, there was a sibling that was deceased. There was concern for non-accidental injury with that sibling, and therefore, and as is typical, precautionary exams are often conducted on siblings that are in the same home.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Ms. Jimison, I'm going to give you what's previously been marked as State's Exhibits 373 through 382. If you could just take a look at those.
Okay.
Do you recognize those photographs?
I do.
And how do you recognize them?
I took them during her examination.
And does Exhibits 373 through 382 accurately reflect Millie's appearance on November 20, 2015?
Yes.
This time and tender State's Exhibits 373 through 382 into evidence.
Admitted.
Permission to publish.
May publish.
Now putting 373 on the screen. Why did you take this picture here?
That was just a way to correctly identify the patient by name and date of birth and medical record number.
And now 374. What are we looking at?
That is the face of the patient,
And why do you take the face of the patient?
also as an identifier.
Now I want to turn your attention to Millie's left arm. When you observed Millie's left arm, do you note or have any concerns?
Yes, there was a bruise.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 375. Is this the bruise that you noted on the left arm?
It is.
And what was concerning to you about that bruise?
Refer to my note for a brief overview. The size of it, that it was a fairly significant bruise. Nothing other than that. The location wasn't necessarily concerning. There was no pattern that I had recognized.
Now, did Millie ever tell you how she got that injury?
She did not herself.
Now, I'm going to turn your attention to Millie, the right side of Millie's face. What, if anything, was concerning to you about the right side of Millie's face?
There was significant trauma to the right side of her face, including areas of petechiae, which is a specific way of describing an injury that is caused by small blood vessels or broken capillaries that are just under the surface of the skin. So it's just a classification of a type of injury. There was also an area of, I have documented here as ecchymosis, which is the medical term for bruising over the jaw, and that was concerning. And there were also injuries around, on, and behind her ear, which was also concerning.
I'm going to take those one by one. As to the side of Millie's neck, I'm going to put on the 378. Is this the injuries that you observed?
Yes.
I think there's a pointer, I believe, right there. It's sort of hard to see sometime on the screen.
Okay.
So if you could point to the area that you were noting on the neck.
Okay. So right here, this is an area of petechiae. The coloring is not great, so it's a little bit distorted there. But that would be the area in question.
And how does one get petechiae?
Petechiae is caused by a high velocity impact, so a striking type motion or force, something with a high force that strikes the area.
And I'm going to put on the screen State's Exhibit 377. What in 377 did you note?
There's some petechial injury, again here on the side of the jaw. Again, it's a little bit distorted with the coloring. And I see also that not very apparent right there, but that was also an area of concern.
Now, in terms of the face and the neck, was Millie able to tell you how she received those injuries?
I can't recall that she gave me a specific history. I know that what had been reported was that it was an injury from gymnastics, but there was no specific incident reported that would have accounted for these injuries.
And were these injuries at all concerning for physical abuse?
Yes.
And how come?
The location, anything that is on the face, particularly the ears, the neck, those are areas that are well protected. There are also areas that the ears and behind the ears are not overly exposed, and so they're naturally protected by the auricle of the ear. The face, we reflexively tend to shield our face as we know we're coming into an injury. So it's not typical to sustain accidental injuries on the face, the ears, and the neck.
I want to talk to you about the ears. You had mentioned on 377 an injury to the ear.
There's a small bruise right here.
I'm going to put 379 on the screen. Is that a better picture of that ear
It's a
injury?
little bit more apparent, but and it is apparent, but again,
And what ear is that, the left or the right?
that's her right.
And what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 380?
That is what's called a battle mark. It's a bruise that is behind the ear. So if you were to pull the auricle up to view behind the ear, that is right on the pinna, and then right up against the skull.
And is the injury to the ear concerning for child physical abuse?
Yes.
And why is it called a battle mark?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. You also observed Millie's right hip and buttocks area as well?
Correct.
And now put on the overhead what's been marked as State's Exhibit 381. What is 381 showing?
So again, this is the right side of her body. This is her in a standing position. And here is right about at the hip, or what might be the waistline, and then extending down, somewhat extending to her buttocks and down to the top of her thigh. And that would be bruising that is, diffusely located. It's spread over a large area versus being localized in one small area, as might be expected from an accidental fall or injury.
At any time when you looked at this photograph, did you see anything that might have looked like a pattern injury?
Initially, what I documented was non-patterned injuries, but looking at it, I do see a clear, well-defined border here that could potentially be a loop mark. There's areas of sparing, which could potentially be caused by an object or some belt buckle that doesn't have anything in it on the center. That's how you get patterned or injuries that have well-defined borders. Even a handprint can leave a pattern or an area of sparing if the hand doesn't come into complete contact with the tissue.
And was this injury concerning for child abuse, physical abuse?
Yes.
And why is that?
Again, the location, this is over very soft tissue, a lot of subcutaneous or fatty tissue. Typically when we have bone behind a bruise, the area bruises more easily because there's the force of the bone behind it. But when you talk about things like buttocks, thighs that are very fleshy areas of the body, they can withstand the impact at a greater force without sustaining injury or visible injury. So again, the diffuse location of the injury and the length that it covers the right side of her body, as well as some of the patterned markings, and as well as the tissue type that does not bruise easily. Those are all concerning.
Now, when you look at Millie's arm in connection with the other injuries to her body, is that arm become concerning to you for physical abuse?
In the constellation of the entire exam and all of the injuries, yes.
I'm going to show you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit 382. And what are we looking at there?
These are her buttocks, obviously. These were just kind of macular, maybe ulcerated lesions that are kind of like a blister that's broken.
And were these injuries or these red marks that you see in States 382, is that concerning for child abuse? Sorry, 382 on this.
Okay, this would not be. That's typically hygiene related, possibly if it was, it's from friction rub, could have been the undergarments she was wearing, so that would not be concerning.
I'm looking at the lights, please. You can have a seat. Now, would it be surprising to you that when you examined Millie on November 20th of 2015, she had less bruising and less petechiae than when she was examined on November 17th of 2015?
I would expect it to appear differently.
And why is that?
Because the evolution of any type of injury is going to heal, and as it heals, the appearance of it will change.
Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Ross?
Good afternoon, Miss. I won't call you Gaskin, but
Jimison.
Jimison. My name is Corinne Ma. I just have a couple of questions
Okay.
for you. What caused State's Exhibit 380?
What caused it?
Yes.
I don't know.
What caused 379?
I don't know.
What caused 377?
I don't know.
What caused 378?
I don't know.
So it's fair to say, one more picture. 380?
I don't know.
What caused that?
Sorry, I don't know.
So it's fair to say that all these injuries that you've documented, these, for lack of a better word, injuries, you don't know how they got there, do you?
Correct.
Thank you. If I may just have a moment.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned that you had seen a pattern today, but you had not seen a pattern when you saw it on her body, correct?
What I had documented was non-patterned.
Non-pattern. And just today you've decided some of them are patterned.
Well, sometimes at a further look or a second look, you have a more fresh eye, and so things that were not apparent on her physical exam are more apparent in the photographs.
Thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Ms. Jimison, in your 22 plus years conducting examinations, over 1,000 examinations of children where there's suspected child physical abuse, was what you saw on Millie and what we just talked about consistent with non-accidental trauma?
Yes.
Now, the fact that the bruise to the right hip was, you saw non-pattern before, and now you say you see some pattern. Does that change your belief that is consistent with non-accidental trauma or child physical abuse?
It would increase the concern.
Increase the concern. Thank you.
When you say high velocity, you're talking about something like a car accident, correct?
Not necessarily.
But that's a possibility, isn't it?
I would imagine that that would be considered a high velocity type of accident.
And seatbelts could create these injuries, could they not?
They're typically patterned into the shape of a seatbelt, so you usually see a seatbelt sign. But yes, that could cause a patterned type injury that would appear like a seatbelt.
Like this.
Not petechiae.
Now, you said that the arm was, as of itself, by itself, was not concerning for child abuse.
Correct.
Merely in the totality of circumstances.
Correct.
And what caused the big bruise on her arm?
I don't know.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Was there a recorded history of a car accident?
No.
It's the first time you're hearing about a car accident today in court.
Yes.
And you said that the petechiae would not be consistent with a belt. Why is that?
With a seatbelt.
With a seatbelt.
A seatbelt, such as in a car accident, that would be more of a force type injury. So it would be an acceleration and a deceleration force type injury if you're pushed forward and then pushed back. And so it's called a seatbelt sign when people are in car accidents and sometimes there's abdominal trauma because of the lap belt, and sometimes you actually have a seatbelt sign. But again, it's patterned and it's in the position that a seatbelt would be.
So in this case, it's not consistent with a seatbelt.
Correct.
Thank you.
Isn't it true, though, Ms. Jimison, that if you came to an abrupt stop to avoid an accident occurring, that it could cause the petechiae that you see in both 331 and in the neck region, correct?
No, that is not.
378.
That is not correct.
Thank you. I will be through.
Nothing further.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down. And please for this be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
And then you're free to go. Okay, we'll call us next witness.
State calls Detective Aris Thompson.
Detective Thompson.
Sir, please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can put your hand down. Please state your true and correct name for the record.
Aris Thompson.
And sir, how are you currently employed?
I'm sergeant at the Henry County Police Department.
How long have you been with the Henry County Police Department?
12 years.
And you are now a sergeant. In 2015, what was your rank?
I was a child crime detective at the time.
And were you assigned to a specific unit?
Yes, it was a special victims.
And are you post-certified?
I am.
And what does it mean to be post-certified?
Basically mandated through the state of Georgia to conduct law enforcement.
Now, I'm going to take you back to a case involving the death of Layla Daniel. Did you have any role in that investigation?
Yes.
What was your role?
Probably about 2 days after the incident where Layla passed away, I was named the lead detective in the case.
Now, did you actually respond to any portion of the investigation on the night of the incident, which was November 17th, 2015?
No.
Okay. So you did not respond to the hospital?
No.
And you did not respond to the home, correct?
No.
At that point, had you even been assigned to the case?
No, I haven't.
When you were assigned to the case, did you receive any information?
Yes.
And what was that? What, I guess, basic information did you receive about the case up to that point?
Basic information that a child, that there was a sick call advising that a child had choked on a piece of chicken, and that's why she sustained, was going through a medical emergency. And then upon the first responders arriving there is when they noticed that there was egregious bruising about this child.
Okay. Now, when you were assigned the case, what was the first thing that you did as part of the investigation?
I attended a forensic interview for the decedent's older sibling.
Okay, and that would be Millie Place?
Yes.
Now, you said you attended a forensic interview. Where was that at?
Southern Crescent Sexual Assault Center in Hampton.
And did you actually conduct that interview?
No.
Someone else at the sexual assault center conducts it, correct?
Yes.
All right. However, are you present for the interview?
Yes. Well, I monitor from another room.
So are you present in the room when the child is actually being interviewed, or are you somewhere else?
No. The interview is usually conducted downstairs, audio, video recorded, and I'm upstairs watching this on monitor.
Was anyone else present with you in the room watching on the monitor?
I believe it was a representative from DFACS.
After you scheduled this and attended this forensic interview, what did you do after that point?
One of the first things I guess I did was, I just communicated with the investigative team, with the other detectives, and got information from them, as far as the steps that they took during this investigation.
And did you send, as part of your job as the lead, is that to assign other tasks to other people in the Henry County Police Department? At
times, but generally speaking, it was usually the supervision that details everyone out.
Did you obtain any records as part of your investigation?
Yes.
And what kind of records did you obtain?
Medical records, things like that.
Okay. Did you send anyone to any local businesses to obtain any records?
Yes.
And what business would that be?
I think that was called Gym Tech. It was a gymnastics or tumbling facility.
Okay. And what was the reason why you sent people out to Gym Tech?
Because there was an allegation that the decedent was attending gymnastics, and that's how she had sustained a leg break earlier on.
As a part of your investigation, were you able to determine whether or not Miss Daniel was ever enrolled in the gymnastics program?
Yeah, I found out that she wasn't enrolled.
Did you ever attend anything else that was scheduled for the investigation of this particular case?
As far as interviews or... Oh, yes, I did. I mean, I did have to go to the autopsy of the decedent as well.
Okay. And do you recall the date of the autopsy?
I believe it was 11/20/2015.
Okay. And do detectives always attend the autopsy?
Not always, but I'd say that on most occasions they do.
Okay. Now, when you are at the autopsy, what is your role there?
I'm sorry, what now?
When you are at the autopsy, what, if any, role do you have in the autopsy itself?
I'm just observing. I'm trying to get information, collect information for the investigation.
Okay. And when you were at the autopsy, did you observe anything?
Yes.
What did you observe?
First thing I noticed was just, because they had the child nude on the metal table, and I just noticed that she was covered in bruises and scars.
Did you notice anything on her scalp?
Yes, there were like striation marks along the top of her head, like they had been done with, a sharp object across the top of her head.
Let me ask you this: how were you able to see what was on top of her head?
Her hair was shaved at that time. They had her hair bagged up.
When you were at the autopsy, did you provide any information about your investigation to anyone there at the autopsy?
DFACS was present. There were probably about 4, maybe 5 representatives from DFACS who were asking, certain details about, the investigation.
Okay. Based upon the information that you had at that point, did you have any concerns about non-accidental trauma?
Non-accidental trauma?
I would object he has not been qualified as an expert to be able to determine non-accidental trauma or not.
If I can ask you this, did you have any concerns for child abuse at that point?
I did.
Okay. And did you continue to investigate at that point?
I did.
Now, at some point, did you conduct an interview with the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall the date of that interview?
I believe it was 11/23.
Okay.
2015.
And that would be about 6 days after the death?
Yes, because the death was on the 17th, if I'm not mistaken.
And let me ask you this. To your knowledge, where were the defendants living when, at the time that you conducted the interview?
Still living at the incident location where they had been residing.
Okay. And your department had previously conducted a search warrant of that, correct?
Yes.
Now, did Miss Rosenbaum come to the interview voluntarily?
Yes.
Did she have anyone with her?
Yes.
Who was with her?
It was her attorney at the time.
Okay. Now, was Miss Rosenbaum free to leave?
Yes, she was.
Was she free to terminate the interview at any point?
Yes.
Was Miss Rosenbaum under arrest at that point?
I was non-custodial.
Did you make any promises to Miss Rosenbaum for her to come in and give you this interview?
No.
Did you threaten Miss Rosenbaum in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Was her attorney present during the entire interview?
Yes.
What was the purpose as far as this interview?
Basically, just wanted to gather information, find out what happened.
Okay. I'm going to show to you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 383. Do you recognize State's 383?
Yes, that's the CD that I marked that I viewed as the interview for Jennifer Rosenbaum.
This is the interview with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. And is this a true and correct copy of that interview?
Yes.
Were there any modifications, alterations, or deletions made to the interview?
No.
And did you do anything to this CD to indicate that this is in fact the interview that you viewed?
I didn't do anything to it.
Did you mark it in any way to indicate this is the CD you viewed?
Yes, I did.
And how did you mark it?
With my initials.
Your Honor, at this time I move into evidence State's Exhibit 383.
No objection.
Admitted 383.
So you in fact videotaped the interview with Ms. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, we may publish at this time.
You may.
Your Honor, we do have the audio on these speakers isn't the greatest, so we do have transcripts available.
Ms. Ball.
Ask them to try and see if we can't do it by audio. Okay.
Counsel approach, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take just a 10-minute break, and we'll come back. Please just go to the jury holding room.